Oh, there we go. Oh. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our official Friday Platinum AMA. This is Dr. David checking in. I got my spots in order. So people usually, there's Holly bebopping around wherever she is in Utah. All right, I'm sure other people will trickle in. We've got some folks kind of playing fly on the wall from our YouTube channel, letting them know kind of what we do on the Platinum AMAs. So let's start with Holly. Holly, you got audio?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. What do you got for me?
Awesome. Okay, I do have a question. So if you're working with someone and you ask them to go back to the first time, whatever, and they go forward in their timeline, and their problem is that they don't have the skills to handle something in the future, is there anything special you would do for that? Or
okay, so if you ask somebody to go backwards to the very first scene, situation, or event that is the source, and they go forward, well, first of all, did they follow instructions? Okay, no. That's a flag right there. And it doesn't mean you chastise them and bust their stones or whatever. You adapt to whatever situation is in play. So what I would do in that situation is, so give me a little bit more background, so I'm making sure I fit my approach to what you were dealing with.
It's somebody having a panic attack about issues that they think are going to come up in the future. Mm-hmm. And they don't believe that it's something they've never dealt with before, and they don't believe they have the skills to handle whatever it is.
Okay, so first thing, there's a bunch of different ways that you can handle that, like a bunch. So the first thing you could do is say, I want you to just go ahead and fly up over that moment, go a year into past that event, having successfully done it. Look back, what did you do? That's one way to do it.
Like that one a lot.
The other thing you can do is point to where you feel it, reach out and touch it. So remember, when someone's having a panic attack, the image is here and it's overwhelming. So you just take it down. And now what will happen is the moment you start de-escalating or neutralizing the intensity of that event, now they can think again, right? Their brain is no longer frozen. So I said, looking at this from the 50,000 mile view, what skills would you need to go through this effectively? First impression. And how young would you have had to be and learn those skills to be able to handle this like it's nothing? So you ask them what skills they need. You take them back to that time in their history where they were most open and where it would have done them the most good, so they could be ready. You teach that to them and you have them move forward, practicing that skill through their entire timeline, and then they just have them walk through the event. Or,
wow, I love all of that.
Or you can have the adult version go back, and very similar to what we just did, but now you can take that version from the future, move them back to the kid, and move them forward. Now they're even more resourced. And then if you want to really drive it home, you have them cycle through it, just like we do temporal editing, until it locks in.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love shit like this. This is my jam, man. Let me show you how to fuck with people's minds in a good way. Right. All right. Any other questions? Is that helpful?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We did get our webinar schedule set up for October, so I think we're going to be doing one. I think it's next week, so I'll be in touch with you regarding that stuff. Mr. Dave, talk to me.
Yo, small crowd today.
Yeah, very small. I'm surprised, actually.
So I guess this is just sort of coming up off of sort of based on Holly's question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious about reparenting. You've mentioned it before,
Mm-hmm.
and I've never learned really how to do that necessarily specifically. I've heard.
Yeah, you wouldn't, because you never came to regression.
So you teach reparenting and regression. Okay.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I did not realize that was a regression technique.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then should I ask a different question? I was just going to ask for like a brief overview of how we do it, but I could ask something different if.
No, I can tell you how to do it.
Okay.
Right. You still got to get the reps in, but the idea behind reparenting is when you send someone back and inside the trauma container, then what you're going to do is once you've penetrated that container and you've found the fragment of consciousness that needs to be rescued, then what you do is you have the person step back out of the container and you ask that person, looking back on this scene as the you of today, what would little so-and-so need to be awesome? What would you want instead? What would you like to see happen for her instead, or him instead? And they're going to tell you something, first impression. Now, when it's a reparenting issue, usually the person being targeted is it's a parental issue. In other words, the parents weren't good, they didn't pay attention, they were neglectful, they were abusive, whatever. So what you're going to do is you're going to give them three basic options. I said, in order for that to be different, would you have had to have different versions of those parents, a completely different set of parents, or would you have needed to be your own parent so you would know exactly what to give little so-and-so and exactly the way they needed it when they needed it most? And you let them choose. And the moment that they make the choice, you ask them, can you imagine what that might be like? And you have them create this alternate reality movie, and you amplify it, you compound it, you run them through it millions of times till the body generates a massive feeling. You turn that feeling into a color, you fill the body with it, you turn the feeling into a color, you wrap that feeling and that color around the movie, and then you have them pass it through their body until the container dissolves. That's a basic way to do it.
Okay.
Right. There's probably 5 or 6 layers to that, but that's the basic reparenting structure. You give them 3 basic choices: better versions of the parents they had, a different set of parents completely, or they get to be their own parent.
And you're just like kind of going back and saying, oh, you have this problem, and then you're teaching them kind of some other way of dealing with it.
The client is generating their own solution. It starts with the magic. Everything starts with point to where you feel it, and then what do you want instead?
Right.
What do you want instead? Right. And if it's a reparenting issue, then it's always going to be about, okay, in order for you to have what you want instead, would you have needed to have better versions of the same parents, completely different sets of parents, or would you have needed to be your own parent so that you would know exactly how to give little so-and-so everything they needed in exactly the way they needed it? Now, 9 times out of 10, they choose themselves as the parent.
Right. So in that instance, are they then teaching the child a different way or something they didn't know or something? Or
no, you're confusing reparenting with informed child. It's very different, actually.
Okay.
In informed child, what's happening is the adult version is going back into that memory and teaching the child very specific things that the child needs to know.
Okay.
In reparenting, what you're doing is you're creating an entirely different memory, an alternate reality. And you're using the energy and the frequencies of that alternate reality to dissolve the energy holding the old memory together. So what'll happen is when you pass through that experience, one of several things can actually happen is that memory just goes away and they only remember the good one. But more often than not, what happens is the emotional charge connected to the old memory is completely deflated and it's just flat and it doesn't affect them in any way anymore. And they're good.
Okay.
But on the surface they may seem very similar, but they're actually doing different things.
Okay. I was coming at it sort of from a perspective of, I guess, like the way I was thinking about it, I guess, was like if you have an experience and then you think about like, well, what is the child version of me thinking about this thing or whatever? And they're like, oh, I'm scared or whatever. And then it's like handling that, but it's not necessarily connected to a memory in the past, although I guess you can always connect it to a memory in the past.
There's always going to be a memory in the past. Always. I haven't found one yet that didn't. In tens of thousands of hours of client sessions, there's always memories in the past. Sometimes the memories aren't embodied. So you say, like someone with high levels of dissociation or even multiple personalities, they point to where you feel it, they point like this. Right? Guess what? Doesn't matter. You process it the same way. And what happens is as you cycle through that, change process, the feeling starts to migrate and they become re-embodied. It's insane watching it happen, but it's exactly what happens. See, it doesn't matter where you've put the memory in terms of how you deal with it. If you can point to it, you can change it, right? The difference is we move things out of our body to give us distance, vibrational distance, which equates to physical and emotional distance.
Right.
But we've built all of them from the exact same stuff, exactly the same way. We just put it in a different filing cabinet or a different drawer. That's really the only difference. But because of the drawer we put it in, our body codifies it and responds to that information in a different way based on the meaning associated with the drawer.
And then we basically are accessing those associations. But if we start dissolving the energy to those associations, I guess, then that changes how we're processing.
Yeah, what's keeping
events similar
to
that.
Understand when you look at let me see if I have a picture really quick here. HMU. All right, so let me share my screen really quick. Okay, so when we create, hold on a second, my OneNote is misbehaving. There we go. Can you guys see that okay?
Yeah.
All right. So what you're looking at, if this were a magical class or a class on magic, what we'd be looking at would be the anatomy of a thought form. Right? If you were to actually cut open if you could freeze a thought form so that everything inside it was static, cut it open longitudinally and look at it, this is what you would probably be able to identify. You're going to have a substance that is built out of. Then you have 5 channels. Like think of like a video with different tracks, right? Or maybe one track is your audio, one track is your visuals, another track would be your transitions or your overlays, or your picture-in-picture. So each of these tracks is like like if you were to add a video, it's like a separate track, and within that are subcommands that tell the nervous system how to play things. Is it a color movie or a black and white movie, right? And then that all comes together to form the story. And embedded in this story is a fragment of your consciousness. If you were doing Chinese medical Qigong or shamanism, this is where we would talk about soul retrieval. What you're doing in reparenting, if we're doing informed child, what we're doing is we're going into the story. We're finding that version of you that is stuck, and we're teaching it and giving it resources it never had. And as the story changes, all of these start to change, and then this starts to dissipate, right? Because it's the story of what happened that creates it's like the fixing agent for the energetic pattern. In reparenting, what we're doing is we're dipping in to the story again, and we're finding the moment of encoding. We're looking at what happened. We're coming back out and saying, and asking the question, what do you want instead?
Right.
Okay. And the moment we create that movie, we've literally taken, we've created another container that has all of the antidote that this one needs. Right. And then when I move this energy, the other one dissipates. Right. That's how reparenting works.
All right. There you go. I feel like it's going to take me a lot more practice before I understand that in practice, but
that was a really easy fix for that. Come to class.
Which one?
Regression.
Regression.
That identity by design, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
right.
I do.
That's your next step anyway.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
All right,
Sweet.
Let's go to Tyrus. You're up, my friend.
Good evening, Dr. D.
Hey, how are you? Let me stop sharing the screen here. There we go.
I'm getting better all the time and I'm kind of sleepy because I've literally woke up. Okay, well, my question is quite, I guess, more action taking in the sense that I literally finished the psychology of money and it got me more confused than I expected. Because on one side it says, save money, the other side says invest, the other side says
the big lesson from Psychology of Money, if you look at everything he said in that book, is you just don't fucking know.
Yes.
That's exactly, that was the whole thing, is he's saying these people who are telling you about money, these so-called experts, a lot of times are exceptions to rules.
Mm-hmm.
And the strategy they employed worked based on the conditions of that time. And so the idea is if you look at what the majority of people have done versus what the ones that really rise above do, these are the best practices, but it's no guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
But what really is interesting is how it makes you think about what's really important. It's and again, the financial services industry, just like any form of make money online or make money business, is going to sell you what's hot now, what worked, what was working, but it may not be working because there's different economic situations, you may be in a different mindset, right? One of the interesting things about, I was just listening to I forget what thing was, a podcast or but when they were talking about Warren Buffett, and Warren Buffett is one of the hardest things to do. One of the hardest things to do is do nothing when it's actually to your advantage to do nothing. Because we're always thinking we have to move money, we have to make money, but a lot of times, in order for stocks to work, you got to play the long game.
Mm-hmm.
Just the absolute hardest thing for any of it, especially if you check on it every fucking day. Right? Trust me, I know. Right? So I just set it and forget it. Right?
I know.
The first money I ever made was when I started a couple of mutual funds and forgot I had one for like 4 years. And I came back and my money was almost doubled. Right? It's just a weird thing. Right? But the Psychology of Money, to me, really, it's a very thought-provoking book. And yeah, it will leave you with a lot more questions, but I think those questions are healthy. I really do.
Yes.
If you take the time to actually sit down and really just kind of contemplate and ruminate on what your values are, what you want, I think there's a lot of value to that. Right. But anyway, I'm going to get off my soapbox. Was there a specific question regarding that particular?
Yes, and it's probably exactly related to that, because thankfully COVID is out the way, and last time I let both myself down, and I guess maybe you or Stephanie, because that would attend, and I didn't, and so now say the future looks a bit more bright. So I'm thinking, based on my current checking off my values checkbox, which currently are against getting chicks, being cool and kicking butt. I was wondering, because I think I have just barely enough money to make it. Let's say it's, I was actually aiming for the Killer Influence in January. As a, I guess, you know,
this one's going to be big. I have a feeling, because there's a lot of VIP tickets coming. Plus, there's a lot of people signing up through the website. So I think this is going to be one of our bigger ones.
I'm not sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but regardless, you know, I always remember that Killer Influence was usually one of the with CPI the best to go for, you know, pretty much getting stuck in a room with you. And,
I think Killer Influence is probably the single. We have a lot of powerful stuff, but overall, Killer Influence and its derivatives are probably the single most powerful courses that we put out.
Okay, well, I was pretty much looking for some kind of clarity, given that the book also got me more confused. But to me, it seems like I should literally, you know, book the tickets and all as soon as possible. And
I would, yeah.
Just, you know, have faith on my image cycling that the government won't change the rules because it's winter and, you know, people are more susceptible to flu and stuff.
I would imagine the rates, well, it's because of it's the 24th through the 27th, I believe. The rates should, I'm imagining they might be fairly low in January. If you, I wouldn't wait too long. I think I think I read somewhere that the optimal time to buy a ticket was like 4 to 6 weeks away from your travel date or something like that. What's interesting is I just bought some tickets. I'm probably going to be doing a little impromptu event in Orlando, Florida, sometime between December 19th and the 28th. Just because I'm visiting family, I don't want to write off the trip. So I might just do a little event or something. But I actually got really, really good rates this early out. So you never know right now with all the inflation and all the craziness going on in the world. You may get lucky and get a super lucrative rate.
Okay, well, again, I was thinking, you know, have like some money on the side here and there without touching my savings, let's say. And I'm like, okay, well, it's gonna happen eventually. And so I was like, am I stretching myself too fast to thin, or but it seems like it's just, I guess, divine timing, given that I just show up.
I think at the end of the day, there have been many times, just going from where there's been a training coming up that I really wanted to go, but there was a part of me that just had all of these reservations. Do I really need to spend the money? Do I want to be away from home that long? Do I want to deal with the angst from my family for being away? You know, is it really worth the investment? And I found that every time I fought those feelings and I went, I came back with something way more powerful than I expected to get. But one of the things I tell all of my students is that when you're faced with an opportunity, check in with your body. And when you look at the potential of what it can do for you and what you want and really need in your life, does the desire for it feel like the need to breathe? Is there that sense of urgency and almost like lust for it versus, oh, that'd be nice to have, right? And if it's not the former, don't go, don't invest, because you don't want it bad enough. But if that lust factor is there, that hunger that's deep inside of you is there, then do whatever it takes to get there, because you will, through that process of discomfort and investing, you will become the person who deserves to have the change. That's been my life lesson. Now, a lot of people, they say, oh, you're just trying to pitch shit. Well, okay, I'm where you are and you're where you are, meh, right? If you're happy where you're at, keep doing what you're doing. But if you're tired of being in hell and you want to get out, you might have to get some skin in the game. You know what I'm saying? You know, absolutely. I've had people, and they're some of them are actually on this AM. I've had people come to my training, sleep in their cars. But when they came out of the training, they changed their life. it's how bad you want it and what are you going to do with it? Right? The money's like I told, you've heard me say this.
Mm-hmm.
For every training or every piece of information you get from me, you're always going to pay at least twice. If you talk to Seth, it's 3 times, right? The first one is the money. Well, that's the easy one. You can always make more money. There's an infinite supply of it out there, right? Money just gives you access to the information. It's the second payment that is where most people miss it. And that second payment has nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with time, energy, and effort to roll up your sleeves, do the drills, and get the skills. That's what takes you from access to ownership. And once you've made that payment, you have a skill set and a superpower that will serve you anytime, anywhere, under any circumstance, as long as you choose to use it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's been the guiding factor in a lot of people who've been in Veterans Planet David. Why? Because they come with a problem, they find a solution, they apply it, they realize if this is what we can get for free, what's the whole system like? And we just keep giving you the next answer, right? But it's at the end of the day, that's all moot if you actually don't do something with the information you've purchased, if you've purchased access to, right? So it really comes down to, are you actually going to use it? Are you actually going to use it? If you come and you learn and you make that first installment, are you going to make the second one? And then if you're
which is using it, right?
Training it, and then choosing to use it is the third one, going out into the world and actually talking to people in their natural habitat and watching the effects of the techniques, right? Because anybody can be a star in a seminar room, right? You guys know this, when I was running this Los Angeles Sleepwalkers, right? World's largest free NLP and hypnosis practice group in the world. I saw the product of every hypnosis and NLP training organization in the country. Half of them were coming through trying to recruit people. And they'd pick everybody apart, or they'd try to flaunt their degrees. I trained with so-and-so, or I did so-and-so, and I'm a master practice, and I'm a master trainer that. And I said, okay, get up and teach our people something. Oh, blah, blah, blah. And they come up with all these excuses. Right? Why? Because one of the things that most NLP trainers won't tell you is that learning is context dependent. They'll tell you it's state dependent, but your state is largely dependent on the context you're in. So if you go to an NLP training and you do all these things in a seminar room, well, you're learning how to do all these things in a seminar room with people who are doing the same thing you're doing. And that's great until you get out of the seminar room, which is why the vast majority of people who go to an NLP training feel like they've learned this amazing skill set. And the minute they walk out, they have no idea what to do with it or how to use it. Because nobody told you that you have to break the context barrier. You have to break that fourth wall, to use a movie term. You've got to get people out into the world. First of all, you need to do a lot more repetitions with it. And then you've got to contextualize everything to something other than therapy. Right? And this is why, one of the reasons why our people are so, like you and Dave and Holly and Christine and whoever else is in here, right, are so far ahead of the curve most of the time, because we're training you for the real world. We train you differently, right? So again, I'm very opinionated when it comes to training people. I love NLP. It's changed my life, right? But I've spent a lot of years teaching people who can't even spell NLP how to do NLP, right? Most people are looking for the superstars, right? Most people are trying to, take people who are already really talented and really, really good and show them off as their prize students. That's never been my approach. My approach has always been, how can I turn Homer Simpson into an NLP master? Right? And so I changed everything about how we teach, what we teach, the metaphors we use, so that even somebody who, maybe they got to the chat, the table of contents for NLP for idiots, can do this, right? And if you're above a Homer Simpson level mentality, then you're going to be a rock star anyway, right? So to me, it's all about, if you're going to invest, it's not about the investment. It's what are you going to do with it? What's it going to get for you? What is it going to allow you to do? And is that important enough? Is that more important than the barriers to get there?
If your questions are not rhetorical, well, for a split second before asking that earlier today, it was making me wonder because currently, I guess the three important values would be, what the fuck is my purpose, or what's going on with my life, and that kind of stuff, which I guess probably the golden path or a phase reading would work better. But at the same time, I was thinking that it's not going to be a one and off. Obviously, I'm on the other side of the planet, but it's not going to be, okay, just show up once and then you never see me again. It's probably going to be.
Well, I've seen you. I've seen your face just about 3 or 4 times a month for the last 2 years that I know of.
Exactly. Yes. And so I was thinking, okay, I think it's best if I get some really good fundamentals and prerequisites in my mind before, let's say, I show up to a phase reading where I don't know how much of.
I understand that. I understand that thinking. It doesn't work that way.
Okay.
Holly will tell you. Who else is in the chat that I can point out? Christine can probably tell you that it's the videos. If you can't get to a live, the videos are great. But something happens to you in those 5 days. The installations, the embodiment training, the hands-on, the interactiveness, it locks these things in you in such a way that you can't go back to being the old way. Right? It's a lot of people, I just want to burn up all these videos and watch these videos over and over again. Well, that's great. Because you know what's going to happen? When you come to the training, it's still going to be like the first fucking time. Because it is. Right? Because the energy of the room is always different from training. Even though the material is very consistent, the energy and the vibration and the aptitudes of the people in the room change. I'm going to actually put somebody on the spot. Holly, are you with us?
Yeah.
Can you speak to what we're talking about here and kind of?
Oh, it's 100% true. I mean, I think there's something about the immersive experience and also being around other people that are also doing it with you. I'll say the 3x3 protocol of we drill everything at least 3 times as the subject and as the operator makes all the difference in the world. But there's something more than that too. Like, I don't know if David's doing some kind of installations I'm not aware of, but yeah, it's a completely different experience. It really makes a difference to be there live.
Yeah, right. And even people, again, and Holly's our Zoom maven. So when we actually do hybrid classes, Holly's the one actually putting you guys through the training, right? Even people come in, and I've had people who've literally binge watched like CPI 1, 2, and 3 for years. And then they come into a live training. And these people have spent, by their own words, more hours in front of that material. And they're sitting right next to somebody who's never done it, or who's been through one live event, and the skill sets are completely different. And it sounds trite, but I can't tell you how many people have come up to me, even after the first day of a live event, who come from our virtual world. They've been with us 1, 2, 3 years virtually. They say, I can't believe how different this is. It's some kind of weird multidimensional installation transformation thing. And I don't know what it is. I mean, I can't put my finger on any one thing that I do that would be responsible for the level of transformation that the people who go through the live experience have versus the virtual ones. And don't get me wrong, I'm very proud of our virtual training programs. Holly's does an amazing job of just keeping you guys on track, making sure you're doing the drills, getting your questions answered. I'm proud of our products, but as good as they are, there's nothing like the live. It's just not the same. So if that helps you make a decision, great. I'm not married to which decision you make, whether you choose to do that or not. But this is what I've seen from doing this for a really long freaking time. And it's kind of almost intuitive to say, well, if I just keep watching the videos over and over again, I'll be ahead of the class. It doesn't give you that much of an advantage from what I've seen. I mean, yes, there's a familiarity, but when you actually have to sit across from another human being and do this, it's like, you still go through that tripping over your shoelaces phase. right? Now, once you've had,
100%.
what's interesting is once you've had the live experience and you go back to your videos, you're going to see a shit ton of stuff that you didn't see and understand things you thought you understood. And then all of a sudden another layer opens up and your fucking mind is blown. You've ever heard us make the joke, it's all the same, right? Where do you think that comes from? It comes from people going to live event after live event after live event, watching the videos, and all of a sudden the zip file opens and they see the matrix, right? I get that every day. And I've been doing this longer than anybody here. You know, it's exciting, but it keeps me humble. As less than humble as I am most of the time, it's very humbling every time I realize how much I don't know. Right. So you're never done, if that's any kind of consolation. But anyway, I'm going to get off my soapbox now, but probably shouldn't have had that coffee right before I started the AMA.
It really did give me, sense of clarity. So I guess it's going through any I guess required notions, and if I show up and kind
Well,
of.
let me ask you a question. What do you want to get from the training? What is it you want to be able to do?
Given that, like, let's say it's the killer inference training, again, my top 3 tier, I guess with priority currently is kicking butt, and then maybe getting chicks and being cool after top 3. Now, I guess somewhere in there is, again, anything towards giving me purpose and that kind of stuff, which I guess will probably move me anyway towards that. It won't be specifically drilled towards that because it's a different training, but I guess it will give me that. Either or, if I get the 3 satisfied, then I think I got my money's worth.
Well, you'll definitely learn how to be cool and get chicks. Kicking butt, that's a slightly different application, which we're teaching in 2 weeks, by the way. Secrets of Eternal Power is coming up. That's our sneaky old man's or sneaky old person techniques. Right. All right. Let's All right, let's jump to Josh. You with us? Josh going once. Josh going twice. 3 times a Josh. All right, Christine, you're up. Christine? Are you driving? All right, don't try to answer questions while you're driving. That's bad for your health. All right. So here's Holly, you got any other questions or anything you want? Anybody else have any? I'm going to open the floor up. What else you got?
I'll have to think for a second. I'll let others.
All right. Then what I'm going to do, since I have a couple people in the chat, you folks have any questions? We got about 23 minutes before this session's over. So, Christine, I can see you talking, but there's no audio coming through. If you're gonna, I don't know where you're at or what you're doing, but you probably need to type into chat what you want to ask. Okay, we have Heaven on Earth Renewal Initiative. Welcome to the Platinum program, or the Gold Private program, actually. You need to be a Platinum member if you want to participate in the AMAs, Heaven. So just so you know. Any folks in YouTube land have any questions? I'll give you guys a quick shout out. Oh, wait, we got people in the waiting room. Oh, Holly got bounced again. What are the basics for time dilation? Basics for time dilation starts with accessing a time in your life when you actually experienced time distortion, eliciting the submodalities, okay, and then mapping those submodalities over to an application that you want to use that for. There's a couple of different ways that you can do it. It starts with probably the best way would be NLP drug of choice applied to time submodalities. Okay. The NLP drug of choice will allow you to elicit a body state. The submodalities will allow you to access the code that initiates that particular set of perceptual awarenesses. And then you would have to map it across to whatever application that you want to use it for. So Tyrus has her hand up. Tyrus, you're
muted, bro.
Oh, sorry, my bad. Quick question and probably quicker answer.
The answer is
I'm
no.
wondering-
Oh, next.
As quick as it gets. Okay. I'm wondering how can you get and cultivate a sense of humor without lowering one party or yours or another person? And
Okay, you were kind of garbled there. I'm not sure I heard you right.
Okay. How do you cultivate a sense of humor without lowering another party or another person in the process of lifting yourself up?
Okay, so never make them the target. Never make them the person that's put in the one down position, right? One of the less harmful ways to do things like this is to make yourself use self-deprecating humor. But even then, as you evolve, you don't want to even do that. So one of the things that is probably the best way to get funny is to start studying stand-up comedy writing. In NLP, one of the things we talk about are things called ambiguities, linguistic ambiguities. And that's actually what creates the humorous component in most jokes, is that you set up a context going in one direction, and then all of a sudden the meaning is something else. And the juxtaposition of those two is what creates the humor effect. So you can do that with anything, right? So like just a quick way that you might, NLP based kind of, it's a little off color, but you guys, it's my channel, I can do what the fuck I want. So here's a quick question for you medical people. How do you make a hormone? You don't pair. All right. So analyze the structure of what just happened there is, how do you make a hormone? Well, hormone and hormone, they're phonetic ambiguities. They sound the same. And because of the way I said it, your brain doesn't know which one I actually meant. And so it processes the one that it thinks is most. Notice I set it up by saying to you medically minded people. Right? Now, I just set a context, right? I didn't tell you that it was going to be that, but then all of a sudden I said hormone, don't pair. And all of a sudden like hormone, oh shit. And all of a sudden the silliness of it is what creates the humor effect, right? So this is the structure of humor. And you can use, as long as you don't make the person the target of that or lowering them in any way, you can do that with anything, right? But probably one of the best places to really get a really useful grip on this is to study reframing, which is like a renegade reframing course, but also comedy writing. One of my students, Tracy Kanan, is many years as a professional comedian. In fact, she was known as the dominatrix of ditties because she catered almost exclusively to the swingers and bondage communities, right? And she gave us a whole bunch of resources to learn copy. In fact, she teaches copyright. She teaches comedy to hypnotists so they can incorporate comedy work into their therapy sessions. So she would probably be a really good person to reach out to. But really just there's probably a lot of sites out there that are teaching stand-up comedy. And that would, to me, would be a great place to start.
Okay.
David.
Man, now you got me thinking about other stuff after that. Me and Mandar were talking about comedy the other day, and he was in Germany, so I think he had like this whole he was in this great state because he had never been there before and all this stuff. But we had just this hilarious conversation, and he kind of came to this conclusion at one point about, because we were talking a little bit about the structure of comedy, also, which I think you did a great job of explaining it, and he was pointing out how he pointed out basically how like fractionation, where you keep returning to the same thing over and over again. And it was like we kept building on the same jokes, and every time we reused a joke in a different context, it became funnier.
Yes.
And he pointed out that that was the same thing, that it was fractionation. And I was like, oh my, I never saw that before. I get that makes total sense, because you see it in stand-up comedy routines all the time. And I think that also with regards to the deprecating component of it, I've struggled with that component to some degree of like, well, how do I not deprecate someone else and not deprecate myself? But I'm starting to realize like there is a way, and you can kind of like, you can kind of make a joke that implies like you're not something, but it's funny. So it makes you look better, but you almost like come off like you are something that would make you look worse, but they realize you're not. Like I told Mandar, I made a joke that this woman kind of made some comment about my cat food, and it was kind of how she said it was ambiguous, and I made a joke that like implied that, oh yeah, I don't really like that much. Like I eat the cat food. And she, for the first second and a half, was like, wait, does this guy really eat cat food? And then she like realized, oh, he's just joking. And she was like bursting out, like crying, laughing, basically. And but it was like my composure of the ambiguity that then led her to the conclusion. Oh,
yeah, delivery and timing is such a big factor when it comes to humor. You know, and so you know, once the linguistic structure is there, you have to deliver it congruently. Which is why I'm telling all you guys, go take acting classes, go take go take improv classes, right? Why? Because as a hypnotist, anything that puts you on a stage and has you reach out, suck people's psyches into your world and out of theirs, is going to make you even more powerful, right? And the more fun you can have doing it, the more effective you're going to be. And
yeah, Bandler says something about how his results went from like almost nothing to like skyrocketing once he started implementing humor into all of his stuff.
100%. In fact, one of the things I did many, many years ago, and I only really taught this in Attraction Mastery and Rapid Attraction Secrets, maybe 20 some years ago, Mark Cunningham discovered a book called Dangerous Men, Adventurous Women. And it was all about the secret codes that romance writers use to make their heroes and their heroines super sexy and irresistible and the stuff of fantasies and things like that. And one of the things that Mark brought to the public at large, at least the attraction community, was that there's 5 or 6 characteristics that all classic romantic heroes have in different proportions, right? They're tough, they're cynical, they're assertive or dominant, and they're, I forget what the other couple were, but I added 2 more to that I thought were really, really useful. And one of the first ones I added was humor or wittiness. They knew how to tell a joke. They could be funny and entertaining. Mysterious and humor, thank you, right? So mysterious and humor are 2 of the ones that really, humor is social lubricant. And this is the important thing to remember. That's why when we're training you in killer influence, or even in identity by design, when we're doing pillars of power, one of the states that we're going to just install in you as a default state is what? Playfulness. Because with that playful energy, you actually neutralize the defensiveness of the people around you. And when those defenses go down, your influence and charisma go up. And it's easier to crack jokes when you're playful or curious, right? So much of what we do with our words is dependent on what we do with our bodies, right? So to me, humor is seriously one of the most powerful influence tools that we have, right? The problem is understanding where the vast majority of humor actually comes from internal woundings, right? And so one of the things that will happen as you start to clear up your own wounds, your humor will change. You'll still be funny, but the things you find funny and the way you express your humor will change. It's really interesting to watch how that process evolves, because you start to realize where so much of our sarcastic, witty, biting humor is. It comes from internal woundings, right? So I applaud the fact that like Satyrus wants to be able to be funnier without lowering other people. That's a step towards positive evolution. So that's worth noting, right? So, and I I like to tell people that as politically incorrect as I am, I'm an equal opportunity hater. I will hate on everybody equally. But one of the things I believe everybody should be proud of. Again, I'm getting out on my soapbox again. I'm just feeling the need to rant. I've got to lay off the caffeine 5 minutes before an event. But one of the things I'll make fun, I'll tease people and I'll do things. And I think everybody has a right to be proud of who they are, where they come from, what their orientations are, things of that nature. And I support that until, this goes to what Cyrus was saying earlier. I support that until you start raising yourself up by trying to tear somebody else down. Then you lose my support, if that makes any kind of sense. And that's where a lot of humor, unfortunately, is used, is it's designed to create this one up, one down dynamic in people that we need to understand where it actually comes from so we can think about it differently, right? So was that even remotely useful? Because I'm like really going off today.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to
my question is, hopefully there's not background noises going in and out of.
I'm getting seasick watching you go from room to room.
I know, I'm sorry. My question, I guess, is like, it's sort of, I've been thinking about this recently. I've been thinking about how we learn and learning from Michelle Thomas, or Wyatt's modeling of Michelle Thomas, who taught people how to speak other languages really quickly. Mm-hmm. And I've been learning a lot, and it goes, so much of it is just like, I already knew it, but then I'm seeing like, oh, that's a really brilliant way to do that. Or, oh, that fits perfectly in with what I know about this. So he's got like this really strong model for it. But I've been thinking about practice and how we can practice better. And me and a few other people practiced adverb, adjectives, and descriptors the other day. Mm-hmm. And we had a really good practice session. And I'm just kind of curious, like, I guess about the structure of practice and how we can practice better, and like how we could practice things like fractionation in comedy or whatever the thing is that we want to practice, whether it's similes and metaphors or whatever it is, so that we can have more effective practice sessions, and instead of, be doing more of the actual practice rather than a lot of times it just ends up turning into conversation, which is helpful, but there's like obviously a difference between the application of it versus the theory of it and mm-hmm. figuring that part out.
Well, first thing is to define your rules of engagement, right? One of the big inceptions that NLP had when it came to training, and I still kind of like, is what they call the three-person group, the A, B, and C, or the operator, the subject, and the meta person. The meta person is the person who's kind of managing and making sure that A is doing their job, B is doing their job, and giving each person feedback and keeping them on track, keeping them in timely, things of that nature. So you have to define those rules, first of all. The second thing is know what your outcome is. What is it you want to accomplish as a result of that particular drill? And is it the right drill for what you want to do? From there, depending on what you're practicing, it could be it's always going to be, in Planet David, it's always going to be a 3x3 protocol. In other words, 3 times as the subject, 3 times as the operator, and then you switch, right? 3x3 is the secret to becoming good at anything, right? So if you're doing adverb adjective presuppositions, well, first of all, you have to you have to decide, okay, who's going to be the speaker, who's going to be the receiver, what's the outcome, what's the context,
right?
What's the context, what's the outcome? Now that you've defined a context and an outcome, it's much easier to create the specific language patterns that you're actually going to use to influence the subject.
I think I was paying a lot of attention to the context, whereas a lot of times people kind of sort of imply like the context isn't important. Like
context is always important,
which is one thing I think that makes me like your training so much, is like you are frequently understanding the context and referring to the context and using it in practice. I think I wasn't as much paying attention to also the outcome in the context, which would be really important. It's sort of there, but I wasn't necessarily being super intentional about it. Sort of like, oh, let's practice this thing and this is the context. But I feel like when there is an actual output, like, oh, I want to talk to this person and I want to do, you know, some kind of event with them, and I'm meeting them and I have 2 minutes that I'm talking with them, and it's like, okay, cool, like here's how you could do it. Because if you have 2 minutes as opposed to 20 minutes, it's much different. But like, but yeah, okay, so that makes a lot of sense. And then so I guess that applies really to anything. We're trying to create a practice like, okay, let's practice being funny in XYZ context. We just set the outcome that we want and set the context, and then we just drill it. Basically, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, there's going to be certain, like in our training, there's certain exercises that are there. Context is going to be in everything, but it's not always as heavy. Like simple language patterns, like cause and effect, complex equivalence, adverb adjective presupposition, awareness. If you don't have an outcome, which requires a context, right? You can't create the pattern. You're just going to be like, because you don't have a target, right? Once you define the context and the outcome, it's easy. You can create an infinite number of patterns. It doesn't generalize the other way. That being said, one of the things that we want to do is we start training you right off the bat how to jump context, or how to create things that have no connection whatsoever and put them into something that starts to sound more and more and more cohesive or coherent. If you ever done, have you done CPI or Killer Influence?
I've practiced a lot of renegade reframing. Like I have.
Okay. So that's a no then.
I went part of CPI and.
Okay. So do you remember you remember the pass the Kid Cat drill?
I did not get to that part, I guess.
Ah, see, that's why you need to come to the live trainings, because you can't pass a Kid Cat through a zone. But here's the way it works, right? In NLP, this would be called a word salad drill. So what you would do, well, here, I'll just show you really quick. It's easier to give you guys a demonstration.
I think we are
You
always
saw me demonstrate it, but
yeah.
so what, let me share my screen here really quick. So at Killer Influence, and anybody who's coming to Killer Influence, you will be doing this, and you will be amazed at how good you get, how quick. No, I'm serious. I'm
laughing because this is where you take all the words and you form ridiculous sentences, basically.
Well,
right?
That's what's interesting about it, is when you first start doing this drill, right? You can't. It's like you're tripping over your own dick, if you have one, right? Or your own shoelaces, or because you're looking at these words as like, you want me to do what? But as you become aware of how the understanding of these words allows you to recognize and comprehend how you can completely realize the true power of this language, you'll notice people starting to just go into trance the moment you talk. And as you perceive them going into that trance, you can imagine the power it's going to give you over controlling and manipulating the experiences of other people. And as that continues to grow stronger and stronger within you and causes you to feel more confident and in control of any situation, because of that growing sense of control, it allows you to make sure that everything you do triggers and creates the exact situations and circumstances that you want your subjects and listeners and readers to produce. As it produces those results in your life. Hold on a second, I'm gonna have to mute some motherfuckers. Hold on a second. Where are my participants here? And muting people is just like being able to put a gag on somebody, and it's the same as saying shut the fuck up when you don't have to, and without being rude. Therefore, as you continue to allow yourself to riff, it means you're becoming more and more verbally agile, able to take any random sequence of concepts or ideas and turn them into an equivalent level of actual prose or verbiage that's analogous to the things you actually want them to get. And even though they won't consciously remember all the things that you said, they'll easily, naturally, and automatically begin to truly experience the magic of what you're doing in unlimited ways, right?
Yes, we've practiced this before, that type of drill.
Right.
We did that actually when we were practicing the adverb adjectives and descriptors, which was from like the mini stealth CPI, the stealth course, not the full CPI.
These are one of again, you only get to this drill after you understand what the structure is, what the effects of each pattern do, right? But what happens with this drill now is you've got all these random words. You have to create a context, create an outcome, and find a way to fit them all together.
Right.
Right. It's the opposite of what we're trying to teach you to do. All right. It's a higher level of complexity.
Correct.
And because you're passing the Kit Kat, where at any random moment, a Kit Kat or a Twix is going to land in your lap, and you got to pick up where the other person left off and riff back and forward. It's forcing you to become more, it's going to stress out your language centers. And the only way you get plasticity or evolution in the nervous system is through some kind of stress. You've got to impose a demand that it's not used to delivering, and the system will start to recalibrate. That's why the first 2 times you do this, you're like, by the 3rd, 4th, and 5th times you're doing it, it's like all of a sudden your shit's making sense. It's random and it's kind of all over the place, but there's a coherence to it. It's like you can kind of follow the story. And how did that happen in 20 minutes? It's because you overstressed your language centers, and the hypnotic effect of these patterns actually adds to the neuroplasticity. And so your brain starts to change, your language centers start to change, and all of a sudden you're just riffing. And the more playful you get with it, like one of the things we discovered was if people would just start changing their accent while they were doing this drill, they'd do it faster. Right? It's interesting how if you break patterns of thought, you can do new shit. Right? And the way we speak is a habit.
So basically, if you want to be more playful, just break patterns of thought.
It's pretty much what happens. That's what, ever notice when people get shocked or surprised or something unexpected happens, they laugh?
Well, you are typically like breaking patterns when you're being playful, I suppose.
Yeah. Right.
I think that the output is always kind of there. I think maybe in practice it was a bit vague sometimes. Like, are you trying to be cool? Are you trying to get them to like you? Are you trying to get them to do business with you, whatever. And there's maybe like a myriad of stuff that it could be. And then so you're not as clear on what your outcome is. How does that then, so then you're talking about in NLP, people are practicing in the seminar, they're not having that context. So is being able to remember something in the moment.
Half the time they're not even practicing the language patterns I just showed you.
Right. If you're practicing talking to a woman at a bar, let's say, or something like that, then you go out and then you're in that period, like you're in that instance and you forget everything in that moment, or you're not doing what you like could have done, you're doing what you would automatically do. Then is the practice just so that you're able to do it in that context, just about practicing in that specific context, like what it would be like, basically, and just drilling,
I think you lost me on the question.
What I'm saying is, if someone practices something and then when they go out and do it, they're not remembering that stuff.
Right.
What it takes to get them to remember it in that context, like if they were practicing talk to women at a bar, I was just giving a random example, but like, then that comes down to practicing in the context of that, basically ahead of time.
There's basically, there could be any number of reasons why you kind of choked. Usually it's because you're trying too hard. You're putting so much value and so much importance on the interaction that your brain locks up, your butt puckers up and your brains drop out. Right. That's the first problem, is you're taking it too fucking serious. Right. How many times we said seriousness is the kiss of death? Seriously. Right. You're putting too much pressure on yourself because you're thinking about the end game. Right. And if this one works, then every woman in the world will want me and I'll be a master of NLP and seduction. Right. That's not what's going on. I'm going to go and I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to see what happens. And if I suck, I suck. If I choke, I choke. Right. Because she's just practice, or he's just practice, or it's just practice. What happens is one of the funny things is I spent a lot of time. A lot of my mentors are famous and a lot of them were infamous. So I spent a lot of time in my Darth Snyder days listening and being at seminars with these people. And you know what? The one pattern that kept coming up was how they were just out fucking around, just wanting to see if something would happen or something would work, and it worked so well they choked. Like like Mark Cunningham tells a story about how he went out when he was first learning this stuff. He went to a bar and he runs this stuff, and she walks away or something, and he's like, oh, well, that didn't work. And so he's walking across the parking lot, and he goes, you know the sound of high heels on concrete? I'm walking out to my car, I hear these sounds, I turn around, this woman throws herself into my arms, and I didn't know what to do. Right? Or Chase, when he's talking about the first time he did a crossfade on somebody, right? He's doing this thing because his mentor taught him to do this, and all of a sudden she goes, what do you want me to do? Goes into command prompt mode, and he choked. He's like, ah, because it worked, right? Almost every guru I know has a story of how just going out and just not giving a fuck, just going out to play, to see what would happen, resulted in unprecedented. Why? Because they didn't care. They weren't so attached to the outcome that they stopped having fun. They were having fun.
Yes.
And this is the thing that we need to understand. If we're not having fun, we're doing something wrong, right? You can learn this. One of the problems that we have is that people go and they want to learn covert hypnosis, they want to learn seduction, they want to learn all these things. And yet the very idea of going up and talking to somebody, they'd rather fucking go to the dentist. We have a priority problem, right? Because they're focused on techniques that are contingent upon a state to deploy, but they're not focusing on the state. They're focusing on the technique and then the context.
Yeah.
They're bringing such a serious sense of self and identity to it that they choke themselves.
That's really good stuff. And one last point I want to make is that I've been doing the 3 divine invocations for well, since whenever I said I started, I've been doing them every day. I usually do it once right before bed, and sometimes I'll do it another time as well. But sort of been like thinking like, man, I kind of want to mix something else in, some kind of moving and breathing kind of thing. But I saw this dude doing these, like, I don't know if they were Qigong movements or something, but he had like this incredible, like almost strength behind his breath and his movements. And I was like, that's like really interesting. And I did one of the 8 brocades the other day, just randomly. And it's like so bizarre how I feel like I'm almost like there's like all this power behind what I'm doing.
Because there is.
And I feel like when I used to do this stuff, whatever it was, standing on stake, I tried many times. I tried 8 brocades as well, whatever. But I was always like, I have no idea if anything's happening. And now I feel like I can go stand outside and do standing on stake, and within however many seconds, I feel like I'm rooted into the earth, and I can kind of like pick up on stuff. So it's so bizarre how you do the same stuff, but then somehow it's different. That's the comment I wanted to make. Is like, I don't understand it, but it just feels like so relevant with all this talk about the practice and everything. Is it's just like you're doing the same thing, but you're not doing the same thing because somehow something has changed, and now the output that you're getting, and maybe there's like subtle little differences and you don't even know what it is, because people can copy the script that they say to a woman, but that doesn't mean it's going to work. Because there's a lot more to it than just the words that are coming out of your mouth potentially.
Absolutely. Again, at the risk of breaking my arm, patting myself on the back, you got lucky because you got access to people who were lucky enough to get access to people who could show you some real shit, the real thing.
Yeah.
And one of the things but you're doing the one thing that separates the chronically overtrained from the doers of the world. You're actually getting off your ass and doing the work. Right? You're doing the work, and you're doing what you were taught. And as you can, with each rep, something in you changes a little bit. The way you connect to heaven, the way you connect to the earth, the energy is meeting in your nervous system and spiraling out, right? Because you're creating a vessel that is evolving. And one of the ways it's evolving is not just in its level of awareness of the environment, but in its capacity to hold a charge. right? And one of the things when we talk about the pulling down the heavens, 1 through 10, 3 divine invocations process, in my system, we call it creating the vessel. And I've been calling it that for almost 2 years, right? And what's funny is in my Christian mysticism class on Tuesday, that is exactly what my teacher called this. So you're creating a vessel. You're bringing in the yin energy of the earth to hold the yang energy of heaven. You're mixing them together. And then when this vessel is purified and energized, now you're bringing in divine energy to take it to an even higher level. So now you become the living embodiment of divine forces. And that happens every time you do pulling down the heavens, automatically, right? Then now you do standing on stake, or you do, old man in the tide pool, or you do dry crying, or you do the 6 healing sounds, or the 8 pieces of brocade. Now you're playing with some serious fucking juice, right? Because there's a charge in you now that wasn't there in your previous practices. And you're moving energy through those circuits with a certain intention, with a certain set of connections. Things are going to open up. But the secret to it is consistent repetition and fun. If you're not enjoying the work, you're not going to do it. In fact, be very, very careful of any angry Qigong masters or any angry spiritual leaders. They're not practicing what they preach. I hope, anyway.
You said be very, very care, and then
be very, very. One of the things my teacher taught me, and I find this to be true because it's in alignment with what I teach. Be very, very careful around spiritual gurus, religious people, Qigong masters, and martial artists who are always angry. Because that's somebody who's not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
The opposite of where they're headed.
The more spiritual a person tends to be, the more joyful they tend to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a practice you'd recommend? You warned us about like doing the Qigong stuff, like that you weren't comfortable teaching it yet. Is there a practice you would recommend that's sort of with the outcome, I guess, of strength, gentleness, calmness, controlling the mind, that I could just add in and do, like,
well,
kind of
just the pulling down the heavens 1 through 10, 3 divine invocations process, tremendously powerful.
Okay. In addition to that,
well, you just have the pulling down the heavens. You have the 1 through 10.
I'm doing the whole process.
Okay, so that in and of itself is a whole Qigong practice. The difference is now, instead of just doing it once, what you do is you break it, you take each one into stages. So like you do, like if you're going to do pulling down the heavens, we do pulling down the heavens, we do 3 of these, right? Mm-hmm. Well, don't do 3 of them, do 36 of them. Super slow. So when we come up and we come down this way, we're usually doing it fast because we do it as a preparatory exercise to get on to whatever other processes we're going to do. So in the Qigong clinic, I got a client on the table. I'm gonna wash my body, my spirit, my 3 bodies, right? Then I'm gonna bring in the yin energy of the earth. I'm gonna bring the heaven energy from the cosmos. Then I'm gonna bring divine energy in and become a conduit for that energy. And now I'm gonna do my table treatment and my work and dip into their spirit body and stuff like that.
Right.
But the actual practice of that system is you would spend 36, 108 repetitions just on.
Oh, okay. Well, because that's what I started to notice that as I was doing this, I was like feeling like there was like actual force behind what I was like. I started noticing like this feels really strong. And it was the same kind of thing. It was faster with the 3 divine invocations where I started noticing like my voice was like, there was like this power exuding from me or something. But it's the same thing with this.
Yeah.
Where
so
it's like
what you do at the end of the practice. Now, again, the secret to this is remember that the 1 through the 3 the pulling down the heavens, 1 through 10, 3 divine invocations.
Yeah.
We teach it to you as 3 phases of one thing, but each one is actually its separate meditation. So if you take each piece and you work it like a separate meditation, when you go to do the full sequence, you're going to pull in so much power and juice. You're also going to purge like a motherfucker. So just be ready for that. right? Because that's what's going to happen. Because the more pure energy,
Why I take it slow.
the more pure energy and radiance that comes in, first you get blissed out, right?
Yeah.
And as that positive charge starts to build, your body wants to, your tissues, your energy, and your spirit want to move towards health.
Right.
So they start vibrating and purging shit that's locked in. And
yeah,
so,
I know that process. I feel.
yeah, you know what? It's going to keep happening at different levels.
And then some days I wake up and I'm like, man, where is all this crap coming from? And it's like, the other day my skin broke out a little bit. I was
Oh yeah. So what you want to do after that, there's an exercise. Maybe we'll teach it at the mastermind is this weekend, by the way, because of my training schedule. We're going to be doing the mastermind this Saturday, the 14th. So Moss should have posted a link for that. But one of the other, there's two other really cool exercises that you can do. One is called Rings of Light. Rings of Light meditation is like, it takes your energy body and just supercharge it, like redonkulously. It's also one of the exercises that we teach when we're going to do spirit travel or astral projection, because it helps you get out of your body. So maybe we'll talk about that. And also divine waterfall. The divine waterfall is where we take the energy from the divine, and now we bring it through our body, and we just first we dissolve our physical body, then we dissolve our energy body, then we dissolve our spirit body into that divine radiance, and we just let it clean us out, like dissolving into a waterfall. And then we slowly reconstitute our bodies in harmony with the original blueprint. So those are some really good things that you can do. Now, remember, at the end of your practice, what you want to do is you want to take all that energy and you want to reconsolidate it down in the lower dantian.
Sure, I should be doing that more consistently. Yeah,
that's the big one, right? And what I tell all my students, especially people who aren't studying with me personally, like the megas all get personal training with me and stuff like that. If you're doing this by proxy, then one of the things I want you all to do is, once you've got all the energy consolidated in your lower dantian, what I want you to do is circulate it through the fire path of the microcosmic orbit about 108 times.
Okay.
And then move everything back down into your lower dantian. And the reason for that is because because I'm not there to watch and monitor your practice. I don't know what you're doing with your mind, things of that nature. And because energy is easy to build but very hard to control, it's very, very easy to create an energetic excess condition in your body.
Right.
And so by intentionally moving all the energy down to the lower dantian and consolidating it there, and then taking that energy and moving it through the microcosmic orbit, it creates like a centrifuge in the body that when you take a centrifuge, it disperses everything evenly. So the more you cycle through that fire path of the microcosmic orbit, the more the energy is regulated throughout the entire system, and then you bring it back down into the lower dantian and you seal it.
So that clears up like the energy blockages that could be messing up.
It's a good way to begin to minimize the possibility of an energy blockage that you created. Actually, you created all of them, but making the other ones worse, right? You also probably want to start thinking about cleansing routines. So like dredging and trembling horse, and we can talk about some of these things, but I'll probably start doing a whole energy training track at some point, because I want to practice. I want an excuse to practice these things too. So
yeah, the cleansing process, that's cool. And I've been taking a sort of carbon supplement for like partial detox, and that helps clear shit out, and that's been helping me a crap ton. And I think that I just need to be purging some things physically, but it seems to also like happening anyway, basically.
So in your crap ton of clearing, are you clearing a ton of crap?
Am I literally crapping a lot? Is that what you're asking? I guess. I mean, right. But it's it seems like that helps too. So it's all the same stuff, I guess. But
there's that word again. It's all the same.
Yeah, well, now that you've just embedded it in my mind, I see it all over the place now. So
you can't unsee it, brother. Just welcome to Planet David. That's just how it is.
I said to Mandar the other day, Mandar, I thought this one was hilarious, and he wanted to ask you about it. But I said, have you ever noticed that like Latina women or something like that, they're very spicy,
but they eat lots of spicy foods, and that vegetarians are usually very cool. They eat lots of cool foods. And he's like, he was so like, he was geeking. He was losing it off of that one. But he's like,
Andar does that a lot. Yeah.
So, but
Okay.
yeah, all the same stuff. Cool.
All right. I'm gonna read Holly's question out loud if we get time. When we are actively manifesting and our life falls apart, how can we tell if our lives are falling apart because it needs to for manifesting versus when it's falling apart as a direct result of our weakness and bad strategies, such as we are being lazy, don't have interpersonal skills? The answer is yes. They're not mutually exclusive.
That makes sense.
Many times our shit falls apart to bring attention to the things we need to focus on and to remove things from our life that are keeping us from embracing a new paradigm. And the universe doesn't really give a fuck about your comfort, because if it's time for you to move to the next spiritual level, it'll just pull the fucking rug out from under you and you just have to figure it out. But here's the thing, it's not vindictive, it's not personal. It's you signed up for a certain set of missions in this life, you've accomplished and learned certain lessons, and now the universe is changing the playing field so you can take it to the next level. In the long run, everything works out for the good. That's why we can always laugh about shit that happened in the past, rather than when it's happening right in front of us, right? When I say always, I mean more often than not, right? The shit we can't laugh about, we're not finished with yet, right? And that's one of the things we as evolving humans need to understand. There's no such thing as a random feeling in our bodies, right? And if the charge is still there, the universe is going to make damn sure we deal with it at some point, right? So, but like I said before, it's very easy. It's very easy for us to become so consumed with fixing what we think is broken that we forget to move forward towards the life we want. So, like I tell you before, just move forward. When something comes up that gets in your way, deal with it. Keep moving forward. Don't keep looking backwards for more shit to fix. It'll be there
What if you can tell what direction is forward, though?
What do you want? Everything starts with what you want, right? What do you want? What makes your heart sing? What lights you up like a Christmas tree, right? There's a reason. Here's what something you understand. Imagination connects us to heaven. Feeling connects us to the earth. Okay, so we're here in a body that feels. And these feelings aren't just random things. They're tools. They're designed to help us navigate this vibrational reality. They're not things we're supposed to stuff down and ignore or create rationales around. They're things we're supposed to explore and use, right? It's one of the hardest things to wrap your head around. But when you really come to that understanding, it's hard to be in an unresourceful state, because you think about your feelings differently, and that gives you power over them. Your feelings don't. It really is. It's bizarre when you make that transition, and everybody comes to it in their own time, right? I can show you the steps and I can tell you what to do. I can shorten the curve as much as humanly possible, but I can't eliminate the curve. And so we have our own path to walk. Even though we're walking our own path separately together, there's going to be patterns that are universal from one person. We've all been betrayed. We've all been disappointed. We've all been taken from. We've all been abused. We've all been, lied to and cheated and loved and hated and vilified. We've all had those experiences. The experiences are common. The stories are what make them unique to us. And it's the story, I just taught this like yesterday or the day before. It's the story that keeps the energy locked in our bodies. When I was going through the reparenting model with David, and I showed you how by creating an alternate story, we created an alternate energy packet. And when we moved that frequency through the problem, the other story, that story dissolved and lost its cohesion. It couldn't stay the same anymore, because that was what was keeping the energy in its particular structure. And so it's the interplay between structure and content that locks the energy in the body or in the spirit or in the energy body. And by changing the story, we dissolve the form. And that's all of our shit is. as heinous as we think it is, as disempowering or making us less than as we think they are, what they really are stories we've encoded on a fucking vibrational energetic DVD that we haven't finished editing yet. We're just playing them, right? And they're all built the same way from the same stuff, right? And once you get to that level, it just starts, it comes down to, okay, I have this body feeling. Where do I need to go? What do I need to deal with? What's behind that? When was the first time I felt that way? Who was it with? Who taught me to feel this way? What's the story? And once you have the body location and the story, all you got to do is use any of the techniques we've taught you or ask, what do you want instead? And you're off. Right? All right. All right. Well, we are about 24 minutes over the time I'd allotted for this, but any last minute questions before I move us on? For those of you voyeuring from the YouTube land, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I hope you learned some cool stuff. If you want to participate in our next AMA, which will be on the third Friday of this month, I believe, usually about 4 p.m. Please feel free to join our platinum level, or if you want to actually participate in the live training where we actually roll up our sleeves and do drills and work together and stuff like that, I invite you to just come and log in and become a member at the diamond level. For those of you who are in the San Diego area, we added a 4th level to the YouTube channel where you can actually come live in person at either the NLP Powerhouse, which is my personal office, or at the Country Inn and Suites where we do our live mastermind trainings and do this in a room with me with no screen in between. So if you're interested, go ahead and check out our community tab. And if you enjoyed these videos, please like and share, tell people about it. And the better the question, the better the life you lead. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of the questions you ask. You want a better life, ask better questions. I'm Dr. David Snyder. Thank you to my Zoomers. Thank you to my YouTubers. Love you all. We'll talk to you soon. God bless. Take care.